My question is to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer update the House on how the budget is fully funding the government's enterprise tax plan, as well as supporting critical infrastructure that will help our economy grow? Is the Treasurer aware of any alternate approaches?
The Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Goldstein for his question. Well, last night, Mr Speaker, we saw a bit more of the inspiration that Labor is seeking and finding into how they're driving their economic policies. Last night, the member for Scullin got up in the adjournment debate, and he got up and he was revelling in the almond lattes left new custodian status of economic policy in the Labor Party. He was boasting how Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders were now what was inspiring the Labor Party, and that's why voters in Batman should be voting for the Labor Party. The Corbyn-Sanders ticket there, it's no longer Hawke and Keating, it's Corbyn and Sanders which is driving economic policy in the Labor Party. Now, Mr Speaker, we know that the Shadow Treasurer's excuse that he uses around the place to hide his backflip, his contradiction, his turning his back on his previous position on company taxes is he says they're unfunded. Now, the Parliamentary Budget Office set this straight when they pulled the rug from the Shadow Treasurer's argument where they stated the fact that the budget baseline is improving is reflected in the most recent MYEFO, and that includes the company tax cuts. Now, for the benefit of the Deputy Leader opposite, that means it's fully funded. Now, Mr Speaker, today the Treasury Secretary equally pointed out very clearly when he said of the tax cuts, we have put them in, that is the tax cuts, obviously in the forward estimates, and we've also put them into our estimates for the longer term. He says they're fully funded from the Treasury Secretary. Now, we know that responsible budgeting requires you to fully fund the things that you're doing, and that's what we've done in our budget. But what you also have to do, because the Shadow Treasurer has raised this issue of underfunded commitments, the PBO pointed something else out very importantly this week. Senator Smith asked the PBO whether the Labor Party had booked the savings from the full reversal of the company tax cut, yet had still blown out the budget by $16 billion at the last election. The PBO said that is correct. Now, what that means, Mr Speaker, is this. As you would know, just to pay for the spending promises they made at the last election, they have to fully reverse all of the company tax cuts. But it also means this. All the money of reversing the tax cuts that they propose is fully spent. So when they were up in Townsville last week, when they were up in Townsville, when they were up in North Queensland, even in Melbourne talking about tram extensions, and they were claiming some $300 million in new expenditure and claiming it was funded from reversing the company tax cut, that is a lie, Mr Speaker. Every time you hear Labor say they are funding new expenditure from reversing the company tax cuts, it is a lie.